Morning y'all, welcome back to Flat Tire Farm. Today we're going to make coffee off-grid with a percolator. Alright, before we get started, Miss Crystal promised me that if I made this coffee making video today that I didn't have to take off my polar bear jammies, so you get to see my polar bear jammies. We use a percolator coffee pot because electric coffee pots that are coffee makers that you would normally use a ton of power. They use as much as 10 refrigerators, as much as a microwave, as much as a well pump. They use a lot of power. First, let me show you all how one of these guys is put together and how they work. On the inside, you're going to have your basket and the percolator part of it. Now how this works is you get the water totally boiling, and as it boils on the bottom, it will push the water up through this tube and it will come out the top, wash over here through your coffee, and that's how it brews it. On the inside, you have small holes to keep your coffee grounds in there, but I also like to add a coffee filter. I just have to modify it a little bit. So just to show you all that I'm not a newbie, this is not a new coffee pot. Miss Crystal is wonderful. See, my coffee pot looked like that, but Miss Crystal cleaned it all up for me. I'll link the video at the end where she shows how she does that. Okay, this is our off-grid hot water heater. It's just a 10-gallon stock pot with this little valve and everything in there. It's actually meant for brewing, and we love it. So this stays on the stove and keeps us in hot water. I like to start with hot water just because it doesn't take as long to get it up to temperature, because I'm impatient in the morning. All right, we're back at the stove. I'm going to get the water heated. For now, I turn it on pretty low. Next, I'm going to alter a coffee filter a little bit to slip right into the basket of my percolator. It helps keeps the grounds in the basket a little bit better. The way I do that is I want a hole perfectly in the center, right there. So what I'll do is I'll fold this into quarters and then cut the little corner off. Let me show you that here real quick. So here I have folded it into corners. Looks like a little pie shape. I'm going to cut the little corner of the pie right off. And then Miss Crystal's going to make me pick that up later. Now this will slip right over the center tube in my basket. All right, I'll spread that out in the basket a little bit and then we'll add our coffee. I have some great coffee here that we ground from whole beans. We have a great grinder that we got from a friend of ours. It's a Cuisinart grinder. And I try to use it when the sun's shining, when the generator's running, because it'll hold a couple of batches of coffee in it. Now, whole bean coffee is getting really expensive lately, so I might end up switching back to just the normal pre-ground stuff that you buy in the store, but not all is lost, because it's really, really good if you take that coffee and you add things like ground cinnamon or ground cloves or a little bit of nutmeg. Add that in there and it really makes a big difference in that really simple coffee. And when you get your coffee dumped in here, make sure you don't get any down that center tube. Then I like to shake it down flat a little bit, and I'll add the lid to my basket onto it. For my coffee pot, this takes just about a cup of coffee grounds in there. You can put a little bit less if you don't want your coffee as strong, but we like our coffee pretty strong. Now we're going to put it inside the percolator. This is the glass. They call it the glass, but sometimes it's made out of plastic. It's probably the most important piece, because if you remember, I said that the water is going to bubble up that center tube and then come out the top over the basket. This is what keeps it from going everywhere, and it directs it back down onto the basket. These can get bent sometimes. If they're plastic, they'll get warped or melted just a little bit, but you can get replacements at whatever store carries your percolator itself. The other good use of your glass is that you can use it as a view window to see how dark your coffee gets to tell when it's done. we use a timer, but we also look at the coffee in here to make sure it's getting a little dark enough. I want to talk a little bit about the bad rep that percolated coffee gets. People who are really into coffee will talk about using a percolator is the worst way to make coffee and all that. You can make really yucky coffee with a percolator. If you let it percolate forever and ever, it'll get bitter and yucky. But the way to prevent that is just make sure you don't run it too long. We like to set a timer for about 5 minutes. When it really gets percolating well, turn down the heat and slow it down as much as you can. I will slide it forward onto the stove just a little bit. There's the timer, and that is a happy sound in the morning. We're going to turn that off. Another big difference between our percolator and your electric coffee maker is that you leave that coffee sitting in an electric coffee maker and it still keeps it hot, but it's burning up all that power. We don't have that option with our percolator. So what I do is I put it in my Homestead Perfect. See, it's Homestead Perfect because it has baling wire and electrical tape. I've had this for about 20 years. These are wonderful. These are the best thermoses ever. But I put my coffee in here and it'll keep it hot all day long. Even though I put the coffee filter inside that little basket, sometimes it does still pull up some of those grounds and run them through and they end up in the bottom of the coffee. So I'll take one of Miss Crystal's little strainers, put it on the top of my thermos, and then pour the coffee through that, and it'll catch any grounds that got by. All right. There we go. And you can see we did pretty well. Not very many grounds in there at all. Close that up, and it'll stay hot all day long. Now this is a propane stove, and during the winter, when the wood stove's running good and hot, we can even save propane by heating up our coffee and making our coffee right on the wood stove.
Thanks, Mr. Reeve, for doing this coffee video this morning. I know it made your coffee time a little bit later than normal. As always, thanks for joining us on Flat Tire Farm. We hope you enjoyed our percolator coffee video and how we do things off-grid. We hope to bring you some more videos on how we do things off-grid and how we do things homestead style. Stay warm out there and happy springtime. Good morning.
Did you do good?
Perfect.